Annie, it's nice to have you back again after our conversation a few weeks ago. We were
Lovely to be here. Thank you, Paula.
It's a pleasure. We were talking about the education experience, and we're looking at the two sort of pandemics that we find ourselves in at this particular point in time. One obviously is COVID-19, and the other one has been this whole issue about race, which I think rightfully has come at us during it as well. Within that context, we've been looking about whether it's a fair playing field for this generation and the things that we can do to make it a fair playing field. So by way of introduction, yeah, the Chief People Officer at Milton Keynes College. Do you just want to explain for those listening what that role entails?
Sure, yeah, no problem at all. So I've been at the college for just over a year, nearly a year and a half now, and I'm their first Chief People Officer. I have been in HR or people services or people experience for a long, long time, really made my career in that, but worked in private and public sector, small organisations, large organisations. And most recently worked at a company called Xero, where I was People Experience Director, and that was a tech startup headquartered in New Zealand, but a really good growth story within Milton Keynes and a really exciting place to work. And 5 years into that, I decided that I would like to have a change and take my experiences elsewhere, and education seemed such a fantastic opportunity to do that. And lo and behold, here I am working at MK College and really loving it. Actually, it's a fantastic place to be working, full of purpose, full of ambition, and really I feel sort of going places. And it's definitely right that they're putting people sort of front and centre of that. And the appointment of Chief People Officer, I really think says that loud and clear, that actually people are a key part of our delivery of a fantastic student experience. And we also as well support prison services too. We have educators in prison services also. So we employ just around about 1,000 people across all of those areas. And we're working also with the IoT, so the Institute of Technology, and building that out at Bletchley. So as I say, Milton Keynes College is ambitious and people are at the front and centre of that. And so my role is to make sure our culture and our policies and our processes and our ways of working are just sing that all the time, that really it's a people first kind of approach in terms of what we're doing and the student experience we're wanting to be providing.
And I like the idea of a people first, because I think one of the challenges that we've had, especially with the BAME community and the Black community, is there's a perception that people see the race first, or you see the color first, or you see other things, but the real person first, you know?
Yes.
And that's where some of the discrimination behavior sort of stems from, you know? So in the context of what we're talking about at the moment, I think the people first approach, which is really seeing me first, you know, is quite important. And it's important for our students because, you know, some of the young voices we heard on the day, we talked about our best student experience. I mean, I particularly remember, I think it was Timmy who talked about, you know, who is in Oxford and went to the library and he'd get asked, well, should you be here? You know, and that was his first question. And he's like, yes, I should be here. And he'd have to bring out his sort of identity card to show that he is a student, because that person most likely saw, you know, the race first before the person.
Yes. Yes, yeah, and I mean it was very sad to hear some of the things that we're doing, but also as well, really, I mean, you had an awful lot of talent involved in that call, and the fantastic stuff that they'd achieved and were achieving, despite that. So I think, you know, I'm definitely not sweeping that under the carpet. It's not a great experience for anybody to have, but nonetheless, you know, to kind of push on, and I thought they were brilliantly articulate, inspiring, determined, all the things that you would want to see in any young person, really. So that was great. Yeah, the people first one is a really important one. My stock in trade as Chief People Officer and being an HR professional would be that engagement piece. So, and obviously employee engagement, staff engagement, because actually if you put your people first, then actually they are going to be giving a better service, better lessons, better support of students. And so we really need to think about those sorts of things. So I'm unashamed in that. And obviously part of that people first kind of culture is also making sure that actually it's diverse, and that it's inclusive, and that people do feel that they can bring their whole self to the work environment, all of their background, all of their experience, and actually it enriches the culture of the organisation and enriches the student experience. It enriches all organisations, to be honest, but obviously it's a particular concern and opportunity for students, and certainly within Milton Keynes because of the diversity of our community as well. So it totally directly relates to student experience and the quality of our outcomes if we're diverse, and also as well we are people first, we have a highly engaged workforce.
And I think that was confirmed in some of the conversations, because if I look at some of the main themes that came out of the conversation, there was conversation around, segregating the BAME, mnemonic, and there were things around, I'm looking here where someone was talking about Black visibility is important, and sort of giving more voice and visibility to Black role models, even in teaching for the students who are in those educational institutions. There was a lot of conversation about the Black community going into teachings and some of the challenges in there, and how we were losing, even when they got through, sometimes we're losing up to 30% of teachers in the first 3 years. And I guess comes back to this whole inclusive environment. So there was conversation here, and I think you sort of said in that chat about, if you can't see it, be it or become it. That was a conversation around be the change you want to see, and I think that was your feedback into it. So I'm just sort of thinking about if there's anything you want to say in particular around some of those things, around how we can affect change, at a systemic and a sustainable level within our institutions, so that we all have this fair and equitable playing field, irrespective of who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was appointed as Chief People Officer at Milton Keynes College, absolutely throughout the diversity of our staff and how that could be improved was a real running theme throughout it. There were many things that need to be developed at Milton Keynes College, but that was a theme running through it. And it's not my natural area of expertise. I am passionate about people. I'm passionate about people in work. So as that, for sure. But actually, I haven't got an EDI background, but I'm keen to learn, because I know it enriches, as I've said, the culture and the experience of all organisations, and for our students that's absolutely essential. So that was a key thing running through it. What also as well, the other thing that is really clear is actually we got lots of data, lots of student data, which we work very hard on, and it's very clear absolutely that student experience and student outcomes are better if they can see role models, they can see people who they aspire to be and want to be, and that also leads us into actually why people might want to become a teacher or not become a teacher, and there will be all sorts of reasons around that. So I think a lot of the stuff is about encouraging people generally to become teachers. Why is teaching such a great profession, and why should you lend your talent to it? Because it's not the most well-paid profession, in any area. It really isn't. So we've got that talent attraction piece going on as well. So there's a whole bunch of stuff which totally all leads back to engagement. What we didn't have is statistics, really a good way of capturing the statistics of our workforce from an ethnicity point of view, and we're working on that. So that will help us, and that will help us show improvements. But actually, you don't need to have the statistics to look around and see that our staff doesn't reflect our beautifully diverse student base. It doesn't, and we need to do better on that. So what we've done is we've set up a Friends and Allies network, with a real emphasis on the friendship. So it's positive. It's coming into Milton Keynes College and saying, what can we do? How can we? There's loads of things we can do better. And a critical friend is a good friend, but also as well, we need some new people who can lend a positive, what we can do there. And allies, I'm really interested in this allyship. You hear a lot about it coming from America, and I know a lot of the Black Lives Matter and our understanding of racism, being anti-racist, comes from there, and it's not ideal. We've got our own history own situations to work through. But that allyship is a really important route in, and I think that allows people like me to become involved and take action. And then my professional experience of recruiting and talent attraction and engagement and culture to this hugely, vitally important topic. So that's kind of my route into that. So the Friends and Allies Network is a really useful way of bringing in friends and allies to lend their voices to how we develop strategically as a college. And actually I'd call that out. If anybody wants to be involved in that, it's a rolling sort of membership. It's not a big time commitment, and we'll talk about various strategic elements. So people are very welcome. It's a really open forum for people to kind of lend their voice to that. And then from that, we've got work groups, which is one of which is working on a BAME leadership program. And so I was really interested to hear again that kind of, is that aggregation of BAME useful or unhelpful? And there are lots of people who say that it's not, and I understand why it's not, because actually if we're pulling everything together, then we're actually missing some of the key messages and the key obstacles and the key enablers that we need to focus on for certain people in the community. However, it's well intentioned, and it's really to set up a program that will really encourage people not just to become a teacher, but actually lead within that space, shape within that space, and actually help them overcome some of the difficulties that they might actually find when they get into the workplace. Because let's face it, when you start your career, you are faced with all sorts of challenges and insecurities, and really whatever your background. So it's understanding that those groups of people might struggle with that more, and so we need to mitigate that, help that, support that. And then if we have more diverse leadership, then that will reap its own rewards and continue to develop. So again, I just say that human first piece, to that people first piece, is so important to really recognise what that person is bringing to the role in terms of their experiences, their challenges, what they've overcome, what their ambitions are. And so it's not helpful to lump people together. It doesn't give the messaging that we really need. And so a human first approach really does do that. So it's blending that, but making sure that we're really calling out our intentions about what we're doing and how allied we are to that effort.
I think that's really helpful, because in these conversations we've been having, one of the things that has really come through is the importance of good and strong leadership.
Yes.
Because to drive change and to change something that has existed for so many years takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of boldness, and it takes strong leadership to make it happen. I mean, there is a lot of evidence that where we are is not where we should be. We have our own history here in the UK, of systemic racism, and it's not just in the education space; it's across many sectors that we have to deal with, live up to, and sort of acknowledge and start to change. I mean, I was looking at some research, and this is from the union that represents teachers across the United Kingdom, and they have I found out a membership of about 300,000. So I thought maybe their voice is worth listening to. And it says here that 77% of BME teachers do not believe they are paid at a level commensurate with their skills and experiences, compared to 66% of all teachers. It says 58% of BME teachers have experienced verbal abuse by pupils, compared to 49% of all teachers. 52% of BME teachers do not feel that their work is valued by the school management, compared to 39% of all teachers. And 64% of BME teachers felt their opinions are not valued by school management, compared to 53% of all teachers. So there's something in here about the inequality of treatment, which BME teachers face in schools, and it goes on here to talk about the impact on their well-being and their physical health. So this, these issues are real. They're real. They're real people's experiences. So when you talk about some of what you're putting in place, I just thought that is helpful in terms of perhaps dealing with some of these issues that BME teachers find when they get into the workplace, and which sort of stands as stumbling blocks. I don't think it's always a skill thing. I think it's just that there are real systemic issues there that sort of prevent them from moving up at the pace and in the way that they potentially can do so.
Yes, yeah, and so therefore I think we have to recognise that's where that data is really important. I mean, none of those statistics are great from a work experience point of view, are they? They're not great statistics. So they're real engagement issues, I think, about working and teaching as a profession, overlaid with, you know, the particular experiences of the groups that you were talking about there. So I agree. So I think it's understanding that, and then what do we need to mitigate that, support that, and also as well create opportunities. But equally, it does need people, rather like the young people we were talking about there, to choose teaching as a profession and to want to kind of progress within that arena, and we need to kind of lower the barriers to that so that we can really help and support them, because we need more people to, as we were saying, role model, be great leaders, and then be great Black leaders in terms of understanding that, because that's what we really need. There's some really good work going on since I've been at the college, looped in with groups in Luton, and I think it's the Children's Academies Trust. They're doing loads of really good work there, and of course, because it's schools, it's supported by some DFE funding, not a lot, but it's helping. Sadly, in FE we don't have the same access to that kind of funding, so we are hoping to spin something apart ourselves. But it really is with that intention, Fols, so that actually people's experiences when they're in teaching, and let's say in teaching in FE, are really supported and as good as we can you know, make them, so that we do attract the talent, and we retain the talent, and we develop the talent, and then they in turn can do the same.
And I think that's a journey that most institutions are going through at the moment, you know. And the retention piece for me is a big piece, you know, because, you know, to attract the talent, you have to retain the talent. Otherwise, nobody wants to come into the profession. And it's a brilliant, I mean, my mother-in-law is a teacher, you know, and I know it's a brilliant profession because people do it because they've got a heart, you know, just to see the next generation aspire to their potential and to get to where they want to get to. But I want to come back to another piece of research that was looking specifically at the COVID-19 crisis, you know, and any educational inequality that may arise out of it, and do to sort of mitigate some of that. And it was a report that was done by a professor from Cambridge University, and it talked about, you know, the fact that, you know, educational opportunities and attainment are being affected by lockdown. You know, it talked about variable home learning facilities and changing assessment methods during this, which could impact on the outcome for students. I mean, it goes on in some more details around the fact that, you know, about how, you know, the learning loss may be worse for those who are socio-economically disadvantaged students, you know, and I had some analysis around how many hours parents have been able to spend supporting, you know, students who have been out of school in this period. So I'm just sort of asking the question from a college point of view and from your point of view personally on what your thoughts are around how this period may have affected attainment and outcomes, and maybe even created greater disadvantage where it didn't exist before.
Yeah. And we were talking about, weren't we, the fairness of the playing field, and it's clearly not a fair playing field. And I think both of these crises just shine a light, don't they, onto that. But it isn't fair. There's digital poverty. You talked about home circumstances there impacting on learning. And for college, from a college point of view, you know, college is actually perceived as actually a really good space, a safe space, a place to go to learn. It's different from perhaps a home environment, and helpful to do that. So we are really caught up in the tension of providing online learning has actually helped some of our students, undoubtedly has helped some of our students maybe the quieter ones, or the, you know, it's been a real enabler for lots of people. It's also enabled lots of staff actually to be able to connect in ways they hadn't before, and deliver learning in a different kind of way, more bites, all sorts of things. So there's lots of opportunity there. However, for some, it's been a complete barrier. I mean, I'm going to say we struggled, didn't we, to connect? And I'd like to think I'm pretty tech savvy, but even today, it can get in the way. And then, are you in the right headspace? And that's fairly straightforward. Here am I, you are on your lovely couch, and so we haven't got any particular barriers to our conversation. But actually, if your home life is not conducive to learning, it is really tricky. So from a student point of view, we are creating spaces, socially distant spaces, good spaces, access to technology that they can borrow and that they can come in and learn and engage on there, and that real blended approach, which we're hoping that we'll be able to help. In terms of actually, one of the things we were talking about on the Sunday just gone, when we were when I was involved in the panel, was there was a big emphasis on HE, on higher education, and rightly so. And I think that's quite structured, and so actually you're kind of to find your way structured. FE is in many ways less structured, and actually potentially provides more entry points for different ability levels at different stages of people's lives. So I think it really isn't. It's really there are lots of doors open within college, perhaps, that you might not see, perhaps, if you're going through either more academic route or a school kind of route. So I am flying the FE flag a little bit there, but on purpose, really, because I think it's good for people to consider maybe whether a more flexible approach to learning suits them better and gets the best out of them more, and the college then will try and make sure that in terms of English and maths, and in terms of access to technology, good spaces to learn, that actually it provides those things even after or even during lockdown or mini lockdowns, or goodness knows what else we're going to have to face as autumn rolls round. So I hope that helps in terms of understanding those sorts of things. I think the college is open for business and very mindful of its obligations with regards to providing an inclusive learning experience, and that means in all ways, from an ethnicity point of view, to a poverty point of view, to an ability point of view, to a disability point of view. It wants to be a place where people can learn and develop from whatever starting point they choose to join us.
And I love that. I mean, I must admit here that I used to be a governor with the college, and I did chair the college for a number of years. And my passion for FE was because I saw it as an option, and it works well. It's not secondary. I know some people think it's secondary. Actually, it's primary. It's such good at what it does because it takes a very personal, human approach. That was my experience whilst I was there, to education and for the student. And there were lots of good stories, that sort of come through that part. And I think for me, as we think about exams and results coming out in August, and people looking and thinking, okay, what do I do next, or where do I go to, or do I have the right grades, or do I have not have the right grades, and all of that. I just think we need to be saying in this space that FE is a real viable, thriving option for anybody.
Yeah, totally. And one of the key things, I mean, it is a challenge because obviously vocational things are generally hands-on, so we need to think about that. But what the college is about are pathways and employability, and in times of forthcoming recession and difficulty, then obviously those things are key, and lifelong success is dependent on our ability to access those things. And so I think the college is a real enabler of those things, and we hold ourselves to huge account in regard to that. And I think like I say, what I see as development for the college is actually making sure our staff are absolutely enabled to deliver the best student experience that they can. So that's my mission, that's my contribution to that effort.
So I have to ask you this question, because I'm thinking about all the people listening. So if somebody were to come in through your doors as a student, what are the things I'm trying to think about the challenges that a student has to deal with
Mm.
the FE space, you know, especially a Black student. Let's you know, a Black student being a minority, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
With the best will in the world, you know, there will be some stereotypes, there will be some prejudices, there will be not just even within teachers, but even within the student population. Um, what would you say to a Black student who's thinking, you know, of coming into that FE space, you know, and being real about some of those challenges, but also about the mechanisms in which they can get through that to attain, you know, what it is they want to attain at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, we have a really great access team. We have a really great access team. So actually, it's useful when students are thinking of applying to college, actually to link that up if they have specific needs that they want. So it is inclusive in that sense, and there are mechanisms and processes which actually aren't always available in schools in the same way. However caring that school may be, that we have some really good processes and built-in mechanisms around that. I think the other thing I would say to people choosing to come to the college is actually it is with the vocation in mind. It is with what you want to do after that. So I'm going to use the term because it's a little bit more grown up. It is a little bit more grown up, and with that comes opportunities as well as challenges. So it is a very diverse student base, and that's great. It's very culturally rich space as well. So it's therefore, by the very nature, it needs to be inclusive. There will be people with all sorts of backgrounds there, and we need to come together as one college. The clues in the title, isn't it? It's collegiate. It comes together in that kind of way. But also as well, it requires a little bit of ownership by the individual also in terms of their success. It's supported, but it can't be kind of handheld every inch of the way. But I think that's really good life skills, and that's how you know, when you become employed, it's that initiative and it's that connection and that ability to connect with people that I think stands people in good stead, whatever profession that they go in. And so I think the college provides a really good opportunity to engage with some fabulous people, actually really great people, and connect. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? But you do get out what you put in. And I think because the college is big, culturally rich, lots of mechanisms, you get out what you put in, and you can connect. And I think you can find your people and you can find your connections there, because it's sizable, you know, and it's ambitious, and it has lots of inroads, lots of pathways that will lead you to your thing, to your vocation, your calling. And maybe that's teaching.
Yeah. Good. And I know the college is working, so I will be called out on this, on the diversity at the more senior levels.
Yes, yes.
And senior levels, because it's not very diverse at the moment. But
no, on the face of it, it's not very diverse. And we are working actually. So the Friends and Allies network that I started talking about at the beginning of the interview is our, you know, and not just doing the analysis, but it's our steps to do that. I'm working on our job descriptions, our adverts, our job boards, putting adverts through the Friends and Allies network so that actually it's reaching out into the community. And so we're really looking to make a difference with that over a period of time. But we're not the only organisation that struggles with that. And also as well, we need to attract talent into teaching. I don't want, but the talent needs to be attracted into teaching. As we said, we don't pay the best salaries. Teaching doesn't, FE is poorly funded. So we are wanting to attract people because they are vocationally drawn to that. So we've got, but what I'm doing is I'm bringing my experience, my professional experience of talent attraction and targeting it within specific communities. So watch this space, and hopefully we will find that actually over a period of time that diversity is reflected at all levels of the organisation.
That is really good, really, really good. And I guess I'm coming to the end of our interview, and I have to go back to the question: is it a fair playing field, you know, for this generation, especially about the Black communities? And of course, we know the answer is no, you know. And you talked about a number of strategies that you have in place to enable that to happen. Looking at the workforce, at the leadership teams, the friends and allies, all of that. Which I mean, I've been on one of those conversations, so I know you're bringing a lot of diverse voices, into the dialogue, which I think is absolutely commendable. For a young person today, who I know it takes time. I know we've been on this journey for a while. I think there's a different momentum now, I hope, than there ever has been, to start to look at some of this issue and really, really put some real change and sustainable change into what is a very difficult area, or has been historically. But for a young person, and who hasn't got that much patience, the young person who, sort of is thinking, no, enough is enough and all of that. What would your final words be to that person? A young Black person, a young Black person who struggled, who is struggling possibly, who, just wants to have the same opportunity and wants to be a doctor or a teacher or a racer, I don't know, or a fashion designer, but has ambitions, to become something.
Yeah.
What do you say to that person in the society we live in today, whilst waiting for all this change to take place?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I was going to say, oh, I don't know if we're about the same age, but I'm going to say, I mean, I think there are changes. I think the fact that we are having this conversation, it's much more on the agenda now. So I think it is starting to move. It is starting to move, and where things start to move, then other pathways open up. I'm doing this with my hand, as other pathways kind of open up. And I think then it's all the skills that generally attributed to young people, which are adaptability, agility, fast paced, changing. They're not encumbered perhaps with some of the stuff that as you get older, you're like, well, I can't change careers, or I can't. You can do that. And my sense is actually push at that door, make that connection, put your hand up, really do those sorts of things. Your career path, I know this, personally I know this, your career path is not linear. In fact, the best career paths are not linear. They jump all over the shop, but all of that experience goes to make you the person that you are. And actually, then when you get to an older stage in your career and you look back, you think actually all of those different experiences have actually equipped me perfectly for this role right here and right now. And that's great when you get to that point. But you can't necessarily see it when you're a young person. But I do think all these changes and movements create opportunities running through if you spot them. But you have to be on the lookout for them and keep at it. Absolutely keep at it, and get help, get support, talk. I mean, I think you're on the couch with Fols is a really lovely network of people, and clearly there's lots of people connecting with that are using that for that space and that talk and that mutual support. So I would say, yeah, connect.
Thank you, Annie. That has been really, really helpful.
Enjoyed it.
I think you said a lot. You said a lot, especially to the young person. You've talked a lot to teachers and prospective teachers, and also even encourage the young people to think about the teaching profession, perhaps more than they have in times past. So just want to say a big thank you to you. It's been wonderful having this space and time with you. I know how busy you are. So thanks for accommodating and being so open with everything that you're doing. And we wish the college a lot of luck. We want the college to pioneer things that other institutions can look at and say it's possible. It's possible to have diversity. It's possible to retain teachers. It's possible to reflect our community. It's possible to have students attaining great things. It's possible to look at our destination data and say, yes, they came in and they got to where they wanted to get to. All those things are possible,
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter whether you're Black or you're white or you're Asian or you're minority ethnic or you're from any other community. It's all the same. So that's really is what we want from the college, and hope that you pioneer that and keep sort of waving that flag, wherever go to, because we do want to see systemic change. All the
well, yeah. Well, it's been my pleasure speaking to you. Thank you ever so much. And thank you for those words. I take them on board. And yes, we'll keep at it. We will keep at it.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you, Paula.